It's the middle of a Saturday night. After a long and stressful week, the weekend finally arrived. But even after socializing, watching a movie and playing some games, you still can't manage to relax yourself. After thinking about just going to sleep or not, the idea of going outside came to mind. Night walks have always been a relief for your soul whenever you feel sad or stressed out. Despite the fact that it's perfectly safe, you haven't taken any night walks recently. But before preparing, you grab your earbuds and start playing some music. It's an artist called Haircuts for Men. I have done something like this on several occasions before. Listening to Haircuts for Men while being outside in the dark just has this very magical feel to it. When I'm asked to describe the feeling, words like nostalgia, escapism, dreamlike, liminal and surreal come to my head. His music has this very distinct late night feel while also including the calmness of lo-fi hip-hop. When I'm outside at night with his music, I feel incredibly distant from all the stress and bad that's in my life. The engulfing of this seemingly unending darkness gives me a sense of protection, while the abundance of other humans calms me down. There's nobody to stress me out or annoy me, there's nobody who tells me what to do or what not to do. Nonetheless, I would gladly share this moment with a few select friends. Whilst in the making of this video, I decided to ask some producers similar to Haircuts for Men if they would like to do an interview. Knowing very well that most of them will probably just ignore me, I got surprised by a fast answer from male Alchemy. When asked about the purpose of his music, he stated the following, quote, "I see this music as an escape from reality, which can provide incredible sensations through relaxing and nostalgic music. I, for example, find myself in some situations totally immersed in my thoughts while listening to this type of music." Unquote. I first came in contact with Haircuts for Men around 2021. Whilst exploring YouTube music, I found this album by him. The cover was cryptic and the title Japanese. Obviously, I was deeply intrigued by what kind of music this may be. Upon listening, I was immediately in love with the reverb-heavy and calming sound. But along with this relaxation came a sense of confusion. To give a little context as to why I felt so confused, back then I recently found out that there's more to music than just pop and metal. So I was always looking up what kind of genre I am currently listening to. But I couldn't find anything after googling Haircuts for Men genre. The feeling was like the first time I discovered drum and bass. It sounds so familiar, yet so distant at the same time. In the first track of the album, I heard a hip-hop beat, some electronic instruments, and a saxophone? Haircuts for Men had this vaporwave-like nostalgia feel to his music. Yet, apart from the heavy reverb and the nostalgic feeling, it didn't sound like vaporwave at all. It wasn't until 2 years later that I found out the genre is called Barber Beats. And to be honest, I have become a complete addict to it. Haircuts for Men is just one of many other producers that I listen to. In fact, I have listened to so many producers, I can confidently say that I have at least heard of almost all of them. To me, Barber Beats is that kind of music that I can always listen to no matter what situation or mood I'm in. Which is probably the reason that it has taken up like 90% of all the music I listen to. Which, for a lot of people, may not sound like a big thing, considering it has become normal to have a music taste with little to no variation. But I'm someone who is very proud of having an incredible diverse music taste. Never before has a single genre managed to make me this obsessed with it. All of a sudden, I found myself deeply in love with an extremely simplistic genre.
Hey, do you guys want to listen to some
Barber Beats
music?
Whoa, you listen to that?
Just on long car trips. It helps keep me awake.
Explaining Barber Beats is very simple. Its thing is to sample already existing music and change it up in various ways. This includes changing the pitch and tempo or adding reverb or even your own drums and synths. Samples are being taken from mostly lounge, trip-hop and jazz music. Most producers, but not all of them, don't create the music themselves. They just remix it. I highly advise anyone who listens to Barber Beats to always be aware of this fact. I think it isn't being highlighted enough by producers. Here's an example of an original track and the Barber Beats version of the track. While the most well-known producers don't compose themselves, there is a small group of artists who create Barber Beats without samples. In an interview with Mabisyo, he stated that artists like Message Me Later and Breaker focus on original compositions. In his view, they are the best and most talented producers in the genre for this reason. Mabisyo himself is not a generic Barber Beats producer either. He says that, quote, "I try to do something different, add drums, effects and more layers of sound. Memories of Semipalatinsk is an example. I consider it more of a beat-making album than a Barber Beats album." In fact, my first album doesn't sound like Barber Beats at all, precisely because I didn't understand in the least what Barber Beats were. For this reason, I have albums that are lo-fi, ambient, vapor trap and other things, unquote. Mabisyo has an alternative approach to making Barber Beats, while Male Alchemy produces it in the classic Haircuts for Men style. At the moment, I just add audio effects, but I'm slowly learning how to add drums and synths. On September 8th, 2014, Haircuts for Men released this album. When talking about Barber Beats, it's often credited as the first ever release, making him the godfather of the genre. His style of sampling was already prevalent here. This album and the many others Haircuts for Men proceeded to release inspired new producers. In 2020, Macroblank, Darkness, and Male Alchemy started producing music in the same sampling style like Haircuts for Men, thus giving birth to Barber Beats as a genre. The vaporwave-oriented YouTube channel Vapor Memory helped further popularize the genre, and in 2021 it started to really pick up in popularity. The genre name was coined by record label Aloe City World as a direct reference to Haircuts for Men. I think it's this style of sampling that's the reason why Barber Beats sound so nostalgic to me. Samples are from a type of music that is referred to as easy listening. It's basically just relaxing music that isn't meant to be paid much attention to. Its point is to enhance an experience. It's often being used as background music in movies, games and shows, but also in public places like malls or bars. The music is there to make the atmosphere less dry. What listening to Barber Beats does to me is to single out this easy listening music from the things that had my full attention. Instead of looking for groceries in a mall and hearing this music playing in the background, I now have my full attention to just this music. My theory is that it's the combination of the heavy reverb with those easy listening samples that are the cause for my nostalgic feelings. Actually, I think liminal spaces work in the same way. When looking at the empty malls and pool rooms, you're forced to focus on the things you've never really paid any attention to before. The abundance of people makes it feel off or liminal. I know that comparing Barber Beats to liminal spaces is very far-fetched. This is just something that I came up with and wanted to share. But the fact that people get nostalgic feelings while listening to Barber Beats is indisputable. While not every producer aims to have this nostalgia effect in their music, I believe Haircuts for Men does. This is very well depicted in his albums called Nothing Special, Nothing Wonderful, and this one. Whilst nostalgic feelings can be evoked by this music, it can also evoke lots of dispute. The little difference between the original and the Barber Beats version of tracks are obvious. Many people criticize the genre for being lazy in its production and to just steal other people's music for some quick bucks. When asked for an opinion about this, Male Alchemy responded with the following, quote, "Well, let's be frank, it's not just Barber Beats that has this action. The vaporwave genre in general is tied to this, using ready-made samples and somehow getting money from other people's music. In my view, Barber Beats is not considered a direct way of appropriating people's work, because everyone who listens and knows about the existence of Barber Beats knows that all the songs are already existing works. I believe that our intention is to promote a greater knowledge of interesting music that pleases people. The money comes as a form of donation from people who like the work of mixing and separating special tracks that we artists from Barber Beats and Vaporwave do." Unquote. I asked the same question to Mabisyo, and he stated the following, quote, "It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. Mostly because people choose who to support. My project is still alive thanks to the people, and that's because they want to see what I can publish next. It's the same for all artists. The truth is that the Barber Beats community is very good in that regard. I'll give you an example. Both Rumbreaker and Message Me Later previously made albums slowing down other tracks. but the support of the people made them grow. Then they gave another facet of themselves. I think it can be like that for everyone. Tomorrow, any artist can surprise. And that's because people support artists and motivate them to do more things. What I learned from experience is that not every artist is the same in this regard. While some strive to better themselves and eventually leave sampling behind, others continue to make quick bucks despite getting lots of support. Ultimately, this whole thing shouldn't be taken too seriously in my opinion. Most of the producers sound very similar to each other, and most of all are a complete Haircuts for Men ripoff. Whether that's bad or not is up to you to decide. I think that every producer decides individually if they want to be just another Haircuts for Men producer, or if they want to influence the scene and be original. As I have already said, the main point of Barber Beats is to take existing music and transform it into new music. The process of sampling in this way is known as plundering. The term in this context got popularized by Haircuts for Men. He states that, quote, I take some credit, but most everything is plundered, unquote. It's his way of saying that the music wasn't composed by him. A lot of other Barber Beats producers have similar descriptions, but one producer stood out to me in particular, Gore. They state in their description that, quote, all art is recycled, unquote. Since the first time I have read that, I thought of it a lot. Recycling is the process of converting waste into reusable material. Now, to call the samples that producers use waste is not what I'm saying. I recognize that producers often take samples from easy listening or music that is forgotten or underground. Through their recycling, you start to pay attention to music that you would have never found otherwise. Once I thought of recycling music as a concept, I realized that any genre could be made into Barber Beats. So far, I've heard samples come from trip-hop, lounge, jazz, instrumental hip-hop, but also genres like liquid drum and bass, atmospheric drum and bass, but why limit yourself to just this music? What if you take samples from genres completely unrelated to that, like psychedelic rock, folk, or electronic dance music? Underground or forgotten music exists in almost every genre, so there's no boundaries. I'm really glad that certain producers already approached this concept and are releasing music with it. What really disappoints me is that Haircuts for Men seems to have had the idea of this concept since the very beginning. Yet, he decided to not go any further with it and just focus on jazz and lounge music. Mabisyo stated the following about this topic, quote, I think there are many good artists, but I also think there are many artists who could give more. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that artists are bad, but I think it will be nice to see them do something else. For example, see an artist who samples lounge sample something more electronic, unquote. In my opinion, anything and everything can be transformed into Barber Beats. The truth is, lots of music and its genre sounds very similar. If Barber Beats wants to live on in the future, it has to evolve. That's why I think that taking full advantage of this concept is the only way for the genre to not become stale and die out like classic vaporwave did. This project took a lot of time and passion. Before ending this video, I want to direct a huge thanks to Mabisyo and male Alchemy for taking time to answer some of my questions. You two really made my day with that. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching.